Welcome to Leader You by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about our guest here, Chandra Upreti. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for approximately 5 or 6 years now. We've been on some journeys together, and our paths have crossed. And the reason I'm having him on the podcast today is because I've had the opportunity to hear his story, and for him to share his heart and the things that he does and the purpose that he brings and the resilience he has cultivated for himself. And I think there's a lot of lessons in his story and who he is as a human. And I just wanted to pry into his life a little bit and have everybody get a little bit of maybe a model of how they could move forward and overcome some barriers. And so thank you, Chandra, for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it's been a while. I've been looking forward to this, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and be part of this.
That's great. So we want to go ahead and start off with your story?
Sure. So again, my name is Chandra Upreti, and I was born in a small country called Bhutan, which is in between China and India, bordering Tibet. So I was born there. And when I was very small, about 6 months old, my parents got kicked out of the country due to some religious conflict. And they ended up moving into refugee camps in Nepal. So I think I'll tell a little bit about camp and what it's like going up there. So when I moved into camp, I was only 6 months old. So I don't know a lot about Bhutan, where I was born. But my entire childhood has been about camp and then life in camp growing up as a child. So it's more like a tent. We never had access to water and electricity. There were a lot of NGOs, including Red Cross, UNICEF, and other nonprofit organizations that were helping us provide food every 2 weeks or whatnot, depending on the supplies they had. We had a school system that was mostly taught by the volunteers. So we would go to school, learn what we can learn, and then it was more about just surviving one day at a time, hoping that you'll find something to eat and just hanging out with friends, things like that. But life was challenging for the most part, not having that security of being able to eat what you want to eat, or not having any access to electricity, running water, or that perspective, having a better life was a bit of a challenge. And we did not have any cell phones or internet or anything of that sort. The first time when I saw a cell phone, I think, was when I was probably 15-year-old. I saw one. So it was pretty remote. So I was there for so long. I was there for 17 years. And while I was in camp, I did not know there was another world that existed. So it was just inheriting the perspective that this is your life and this is what it's going to be. And you just survive one day at a time, go to school, do chores, go to forest, face woods, and light a fire, cook, hang out with friends, and do stuff that typical kids would do, like going out, playing, and I mean, life was hard, but then you have a lot of friends as well. So I think it really kept me engaged growing up. But then I never had a hope or dreams of becoming somebody. Because when your life becomes survival, and when you're trying to survive one day at a time, I think dreaming something big or dreaming for the future becomes very challenging. And I think That's one of the most difficult thing I've ever had to deal with. Like, what do I want to do when I grow up? Like, growing up, I'm like, I'd be happy if I could get something to eat, or, if I could get some meat for a
Right.
day, that would be a big deal. So that's like what I was looking for then planning for future. So I mean, that's briefly a little bit about life in camp. And I was there for 17 years, and then there was this talk about resettlement, and we applied to get out of the camps. It's done through it's a government process done through IOM. It's called the International Organization for Migrations. So we applied, and just go through the process. It took us about 2 years, all the interviewing, fingerprinting, and all that. So we did that process, and then when me and my family, we came to Twin Falls in September of 2008, and I was 17-year-old when I came to Twin Falls. I was about to be 18, but I was still 17 when I got here in Twin Falls, Idaho. That's where my family came, and we all came together. That was really nice. And um, when I got here, it was very different. The culture change, it was quite a bit of shock. Me coming from a place of nothing. I mean, I've never had all the luxury that we have here. So it was like a lot of learning process. So I mean, learning from very small things to big things, like learning how to turn on the electricity or running water, hot and cold water, vacuum cleaner, microwave, rice cooker, all that stuff to complicated stuff like driving and things of that nature. And obviously, language was a big problem for me. I thought I spoke some English back home, but I had a very thick accent. So when people were talking to me, I understand them a little bit, but when I was talking to them, it was all Greek. So they were like, "Oh, is that English or is it a different language?" But then as I continued to stay, I interacted with more people, went to school, and all that stuff. And over the course of time, I learned. So now I'm in a much better place, and very fortunate to be here to have everything we have. Sometimes when it's given to you, you take it for granted. But for many people out there, it's a very different story out there. So it's like being able to appreciate everything you have. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about myself. Andy, unless there is anything specific you want me to focus on, but I think that's a little bit of my story.
There's a lot of resilience in all of that. Um, I think, well, let's pick up the story where I met you was at ISU. So you were working on your bachelor's degree at that time?
Yeah, yeah. So and I think that'll kind of focus on the schooling part of it. So when I came, I was 17. I was about to turn 18. I've always wanted to go to school, so I went to high school here in town. And back then, they only had Twin Falls High School here, so I went there, and I tried to talk to some people there, but I had the impression that they did not understand the thing that I was trying to tell. But I was trying to tell them that I wanted to come to school and learn, and they basically told me I was too old and I did not speak English, and which they were probably right. I kind of had a very thick accent, and they're like, "Oh, this guy that does not even speak English. How is he going to graduate on time and with the age requirement and everything that they have here in high school?" So they basically told me, just go to CSI, try to work on GED and things like that. So I went to CSI and did some testing and started working on my GED, and I find out myself that I know some stuff because I did really good on math and science. I mean, English was hard as expected, but math and science, I was able to cruise right on. And so I got my GED there. And then I started working on my associate degree. It took me some time to get that done. I got my associate degree in sociology because I was doing social work. I was working at the refugee center, helping fellow refugees like me. It was very rewarding. But so I worked on my associate degree, and then I started working on my bachelor's degree. That's where I met you at ISU. So I was working on a bachelor's degree. I got my bachelor's degree in workplace training and leadership. And that was extremely helpful, trying to understand how leadership works, how we can, like working with people, working on relationships, team building, and things of that nature. It was very helpful. After that, I wanted to get my master's, and I moved to Pocatello and stayed there for a year and a half and got my MBA. So got that one done. And at that point,
With
I'm like,
children
okay,
and a wife and living away from
yeah,
your wife during the week going to school. You're skipping
yes,
over the hard parts.
yes, that was tough. So what I would do, I would usually so like I I worked on my schedule, so I was there 4 days working. And when I was doing my grad school, I was also teaching assistant. So I was also doing that job there. So I arranged my schedule with my work and school. I stayed there 4 days and then came home usually Friday and then stayed with my kids and my wife over the weekend. And then I would travel back to Pocatello every Sunday. So it was just traveling back and forth. It was tough, especially with my two little girls. They were missing me a lot when I was in the school, and then just making that work was a little bit tough, but it worked. And I got I got my master's in a year and a half, I believe, because I went crazy because at ISU they would only allow they would consider 9 credit as full time, and then there was a semester where I did 21.
I
And
remember
they were
that.
like, "Are you crazy? 9 credit is full time for a grad student, and you're trying to do 21, and you have a family. You're doing this teaching assistant job, and they think I'm crazy." And I told them I'm crazy, but I know that I'll get it done. And surprisingly, I did very well with my grad school, but worked hard. But it wasn't. It's not like camp, It's still way better. It's not like you're trying to fight for your life or whatever. You just go study, work hard, and it could be done. So yeah. So I got my master's there. I think that's my schooling. As far as work, I worked at the refugee center for 10 years as a case manager and resettlement coordinators, just different positions there, helping fellow refugees like me. It was really rewarding, and it really made me feel good that I was able to help others that have been in my suits, and I understand where they were coming from and what to make their life easier here. So when I got here, obviously, I mean, I spoke very little English, and we were the first family in Twin Falls from that came out of refugee camps in Nepal. So I went to DMV, try to get my license, and they would tell me, "Oh, you don't speak English. Go get an interpreter." And I'm like, "From where? We are the only family in town." So because there was this clause when you go get your license about sex offender, and if you are convicted felon or convicted sex offender, in by Idaho law, you're required to register at DMV, and that was a big deal that they wanted to make sure that I understood that. So I mean, I would keep going there, and they would keep telling me you don't speak English. So I took a picture of that whole paragraph, and then came home and memorized the entire thing, and then went back, and I'm like, "I speak English. I'll tell you what this is about." And then I looked at the lady there, and then literally told her the entire paragraph, and she's like, "Oh, you speak English." And then they let me in. I passed the test. It was a piece of cake, but that's how I got in. And after that, I started helping my friends and families, and I started a driving class at the refugee center, and they still have that class going even today. I created a curriculum for them, started teaching fellow refugees about the rules, about the written test itself, learning all the signs and rules and passing those tests and all the requirements and whatnot. So I invented that class there, and was able to help so many people. So, yeah.
It's so inspiring. So many roadblocks, yet it was part of your purpose to just continue regardless of what got in your way.
Yes, true. And then especially, I think when it comes to resilience, I think to me, I don't have any plans. It's like I was thrown in this situation that, okay, here you are. And it was more like a, fight or flight response. Like you got to do what you got to do to survive kind of thing. So to me, it's like, if people are thrown into the situation, then it's more of a natural instinct. It kicks in, that I mean, you become so creative and you'll find ways to survive and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've learned. And I think it's kind of ingrained in me now that I've been through so many difficult situations in life. But then I try to teach my kids. So to them, it's more just like storytelling. Hey, this is what I've been through. But then it's just, they're spoiled. Everything is given to them, and unless they experience it themselves, I think it would be really hard for them to learn what it actually is and how you can overcome it. But then to me, like getting the driver license, I mean, what do I do? I need to be able to drive in Twin Falls, no public transportation. I gotta go to work, provide for my family and things like that. And they keep asking me for an interpreter, which does not exist. I mean, we're the only family in town.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I mean, I had nothing to do. So I'd walk to DMV every other day, hoping that they would let me in. So
So you
yeah,
kept
it
going.
worked.
You were going every other day.
Yeah,
Just showing up
every
every
other
other
day,
day.
and sometimes hoping that, oh, can I get a different lady this time, because the other one would already told me I don't speak English, and praying it'll be somebody else that would be willing to listen to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, and then, I mean, I when I came here, I mean, I did not have much to do. So I'm like, I need to get this done. So it wasn't hard. I would not say it's hard. I mean, compared to where I came from, it was a lot of learning. But again, it's not hard to learn. Sometimes it is, I guess. But then it's all about perspective, right? It's all about, oh, my life in camp. I mean, I always, and in every difficult situations, I go back and reflect of who I was, like the roots where I came from, and my life back home. And compared to that, I mean, it's nothing like that. You just go keep bugging them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's that squeaky wheel that gets the grease. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that you reuse what you've been through to reflect, and I think that's one of the skills of a resilient person or a resilient leader is that they don't ruminate on it, they don't get stuck back there, but they reflect. They know what's out of their control and what's in their control, and really, the only thing we have control of is how we handle the situation.
True. True. And that's, I think you put it perfectly. I mean, there are things that you don't have control of, right? And then I think it's sometimes um, being able to let go of things that you cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in situations, and again, I'm not, by no means I'm perfect. I've got issues just like everybody else, and there are things that are just out of my control, and I try to be there, try to tackle it when there is something. But there are times where it's like there's nothing I can do, and I don't want to be hurting myself on things that I don't have control of. And life is too short. You never know. So it's like being able to engage and do what you can do to help others, and move on, and just that idea of just trying to do what you can do, but also being able to let go of things so you can live happily. And it's really, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it's easy to say, but sometimes it's hard to do. So,
Mm-hmm.
but then there were times it's like there were things that bothered me, but then I'm like, uh-oh, just reflecting myself. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. And more I keep focusing on that thing, I think I'll just be hurt myself. And at that point, it becomes pointless. So being able to move on from some of those situations would be helpful. But
It's a mindset,
sometimes,
right? And sometimes we get stuck in that mindset, right? And
yeah.
did you have some people that you could lean on to help you or mentor you, or did the refugee center have some of that stuff?
So, yes, I do have a lot of good friends, I would say, that I hang out with. And sometimes when I need a break, I mean, we all need breaks. So I try to reset myself frequently. I take a lot of breaks here and there, even for a day, if I need to get out, hang out with my friends. And so I've got a lot of friends at the refugee center. I don't work there anymore, but I still go and help out, volunteer when I can, still go and say hi to people that I work with and just be engaged and contribute back. I just feel very obligated that I need to give back now that I can. That's where I came from, and that's the agency that helped me when I was new. So I'm very involved with the refugee center even today. But outside of that, I've also got a lot of other friends from the community. So I just talk to them, bounce off ideas, and more like brainstorming, things like that. And at difficult times, I mean, I talk to my wife and my parents and my brothers and just collect ideas. And I think what helped me is being able to go back and reflect, and I've lived here so long now, I tend to forget, over the course of time. Now I have a much better life. I just sometimes tend to forget where I came from. And sometimes I just need to kick myself back to those difficult times. And then it gives me a different perspective. Look, yes, it's a problem, but it's not a real problem at the meantime. Sometimes to me it's like trying to survive one day at a time, like not knowing what you're going to eat that night. That is a problem. Whatever I'm dealing with this, it's much more better than that. So I think I try to reflect a lot on my past and also reflecting about other problems that I've dealt with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this happened, and how did I solve that? What did I do? And what has helped me a lot when it comes to problem solving is just being open minded and this idea that learning never ends. The world is changing constantly, things changes all the time, change is difficult, but at the meantime it's inevitable, you cannot avoid it. So being open to the learning processes, and just reflecting on the past problems and how I overcame with those problems helped me a lot. With that said, I mean, I'm nowhere near perfect. There are times where I'm like, I do something and I'm like, oh, I could have done it this way or that way. It's like a learning every day. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. So, you were just in Africa, right?
Yeah.
So, what were your takeaways from that? And can you explain a little bit about what you were doing there?
So yeah, I was in Africa about 2 weeks ago. This is my third week. So I was there recently. And so I've got these friends that and we're just hanging out. Basically, it was me and the lawyer from Jerome and my another friend. We're just talking, and all of a sudden we're like, and again, we are all into nonprofits, helping people, and what can we do? And then this idea came up. Oh, um, is there anything we can do to help people? And then we decided um, that maybe Africa would be a good place to help, basically. But then also there was this business idea in addition to helping. Um, and to me, I was like, I want to do this. I jumped in right away and like, we need to get going because again, somebody, while I was in refugee camps, someone fed me, someone kept me alive. That's why I'm here today. And I feel very obligated, like I said, to give back. That now I can, I should give back. So I'm like, I want to do this, and I got really desperate. And they were like, they keep kind of reminding me that, oh, we're just brainstorming, this is we're just trying to figure out now. But I was so desperate, like I wanted to get this done. So we planned a trip. Like, okay, let's go see what's out there and what we can do to help people out there. So the whole idea was to go over there and kind of access the situation and what could be done that could benefit the people most out there. So we went to Uganda and then visit some of the villages out there. There was also a refugee resettlement place there, so we went there, and and we thought that there's so many things that you could do to help people out there. Just because life is difficult and there's so many people, but they don't have a lot to do. So we're still brainstorming. This is a process, but then we talked about different ideas. What if we do like a corn factory? So a lot of people out there, they would farm corn, and then we buy their corn, process it, and then corn flour. It's very big. Like that's the main food for a lot of people that cannot afford high-end food. So then produce food, and then it again bounce back to the communities and then help provide food, and maybe we could even donate to the refugee programs there and things like that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So we had so many ideas, but I think it kind of narrowed down to that one kind of this factory idea, um, of trying to do like a corn factory, and that would produce corn and help people, but then also help the local community grow, so that way they know that we're gonna buy it from them or whatnot. So that's still in very early stage, but I'm working with those partners trying to get that done as well. But then also, I'm glad I visited Africa. It reminded me of my childhood, but then it was also emotionally disturbing at times. I'm like, and I would see these kids, and then I'd be like distributing money to them. I just could not resist. Like it was like, I gotta do something. So I would make my driver stop the car and give out money. But then like $1 here, it's like 3,600 shillings
Oh,
over there.
wow.
So even if you could give 1,000 shillings to somebody, it's like 30 cents or whatever. So I was able to give away a lot of money to, especially a lot of kids. You would see like 10-year-old taking care of another 3-year-old. That was brutal, and it was disturbing. But then again, I had really hard times trying to, like, emotionally trying to have that balance, and it's like, again, I cannot help everybody out there, kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing, and help who you can help.
And you do, and you
So
do that in
yeah,
You do that in Twin Falls too. I know that you own the restaurant, the amazing Saffron, and I can't get enough of that when I come to town. I know that you do some food in the park for people.
yeah. So yeah, we have little Indian restaurant Saffron here in Twin Falls. So I partner with the church, and they have a nonprofit organization. It's called Everybody Eats. So they partner with restaurants and collect like donations from nonprofit or for-profit organizations to help the less fortunate people that are fighting food insecurity. So we partnered with them twice, and then we provide food out in the park once, and then the other two times what we did was they would provide the vouchers to all these nonprofit organizations, homeless shelters, and people would walk into the restaurant and just eat whatever they want to eat. And um, I think we last time we did that was in April, and we provided meals to 200 people
Wow.
in the month of April. And then before then, it probably was January or December, and we provided meals to 250 people that month. And in addition to that, we frequently donate food to Valley House, which is a homeless shelter here, and things like that. So again, when you give away, it comes back, and that's been me. So I really don't care. It's like if I feel like it's right, I'm like, go do it. And again, I own it, so I don't have to ask anybody. So at that point, it's like whatever I want to do. So then, just whatever to me, if I can help people, I'll just do it in a heartbeat. So and yeah, so I partner with other folks, and then at the refugee center too. we were able to help them too. And there are new people coming and they're in a motel, they cannot cook, and we provide subsidized food to them. So somebody would come and pick up like good cooked food and then drop it at the motel and things of that nature. So I always partner with them. So again, just doing whatever you can do to help people out, and it makes me feel good as a person, and that I'm able to give back. It's I think it gives me great satisfaction.
I feel like people need to hear this story of refugees, especially Idahoans that have never lived outside of their comfort or they're outside of their country, and that they can learn that when you help people, they just need a hand up. And so when you have that hand up, you can actually get your footing. You can actually get educated. You can actually be a productive member of society and give back. I think there's this stigma about refugees, and I know you came across a lot of um, issues working at the refugee center and a lot of obstacles and a lot of pushback on bringing refugees. Do you want to talk about the resilience you built from that?
Yeah, working at and I think that brings up a very good point. I mean, now I came as a refugee, and now I'm a very productive citizen, and I'm very proud to be American citizen. I mean, Twin Falls is my home. I'm very proud and fortunate to belong to America. This is my home. You like it or not, this is my home.
I like it
So,
a lot.
but yeah, and that's the like working at the refugee center. And there are people that are very supportive of refugees and immigrants, but then they are quiet, and then there is this a lot of other folks that are crying out loud. And at the refugee center, we would get phone calls like, "Oh, you're bringing these refugees that are just here to come and just screw our welfare system and to be on food stamp and Medicaid. And they just come here and we provide them everything." And just a lot of complaints. Now, again, you cannot speak for everybody. I mean, there are some that just may come and do that, and I think that's what they're coming from. But then a lot of us, we are just looking for a chance to just come here and work and move on with our life. And sometimes I think of myself like if I would have never come here, I mean, my life, I would still be, struggling and surviving one day at a time. There's nothing you could do. So I'm just very thankful and fortunate. But in the meantime, I mean, in Idaho, there's just so much of that hate. And I've experienced that at the refugee center, people calling and like, get the hell out of this country. You don't belong here. You're just here to just come and get the money from the government. And one of my neighbor, I was renting a house, and this was probably 7, 8 years ago, and I was renting a house, and my next door neighbor would come to my house and says like, "Go back to your country." And I'm like, "This is my country. You like it or not, this is my home." And again, he would just come knocking on my door, and my mom, who did not speak any English, and she would start yelling at her, and I would come to the door and it's like, "This is not your country. Go back." And I would tell her, "This is my country. You like it or not."
Mm-hmm.
And then she would back off. And it's sad, but there are good people and bad people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with religion. I believe there are good people and bad people everywhere. And I mean, it's okay. I just, again, going back and reflecting, I mean, my life is way better than life in camp. I cannot even compare it. So, I'm allowed to work. I have the freedom. I just do what I want to do. But then there are people out there that are not happy, and you just, if they're open-minded and willing to listen, you just talk to them, make friends.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are some that are like, my way or no way, just get out of here, and then you just walk away from them. What else can you do? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
How do you try to build resilience in your kids? Where you were talking about they're spoiled, and I think that is one of the problems that we have, is kids that aren't resilient enough because their life has been way too comfortable.
True, true. And my kids, I mean, I provide everything to them. I've got 3-year-old and 7-year-old daughters, and especially the 7-year-old one, I try to give her hard times in purpose. Because he would be like, "Oh, I want this," and I'm like, "No, you're not getting this. Just because you want it doesn't mean that you have to get it. You have to work for it. So you'll do this, that, and that, and that, and then you will maybe get it." And again, I think it's just the idea here when it's given to them, they just feel like it keeps coming because it's given to them and they take it for granted. Oh, I can just ask daddy and he's going to buy it for me. But then it's very hard. I mean, I'm not able to, when you have I think when you're teaching to the kids versus when they have experienced it, I think the experience is much more better. Like it's in you and it kicks in when it's needed. So it's really nice to have that. But my kids, I try to talk to them about my childhood. I mean, I did not have even flip-flops. Forget about phones.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they need their phones to eat. Like they have their phones, and it's just crazy. I try to talk to them, but then I try to do that as often as I can. So, but then I think a little bit of that is there. I think my kids appreciate what's a little bit more now, the things that are given to them and our life back home, especially the 7-year-old. I did a lot of talking to her before going to bed and things like that. And I think 7, 8 months ago we were driving, and then my 7-year-old saw a man that had this sign like need help or anything, and then my daughter's like, "Oh, daddy, can we go to McDonald's and buy something for this guy?" So turn around, went to McDonald's, bought some food and gave some money to this guy. So coming that out of my daughter made me feel really good. Oh,
Yeah.
this is what I want her to do, and it makes me feel really good that I think some of it is there, but then I mean they're just spoiled at the end of the day. And again, it's just maybe me, and a lot of the time I'm just being biased, or I guess a lot of the time I'm comparing myself to my past.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, when I was growing up, like when I was 7 year old, I was out in the forest fetching woods, cooking foods, and nobody supervised me. I was just out there
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of stuff. And my 7-year-old daughter, I mean, she doesn't do much. And and so I just try to, I guess, keep talking to her. But again, it's not easy. It's hard.
Yeah, it's kind of
Because
having to find experiences for them, whether that's serving at a homeless shelter or,
yeah,
getting them to have the experience because they really don't have their own experience. They only have your
yeah,
ideas, which we impose on them. So we want to give them those experiences.
yeah, yeah.
Have they traveled yet? They're kind of young, but are you thinking of down the road traveling and kind of showing them what the
Yes,
world is like?
yes. And I'm waiting for this 3-year-old to be bigger that way. It's very far, but I want her to take them to camps in Nepal. But then this 3-year-old, maybe when she's 5, 6, or have some understanding, then they would travel as a family. And then hopefully they get to see for themselves. But like you said, I'm just imposing my idea of resiliency to them. But then getting them experience and stuff. But they're young too.
Yeah.
But
I think that
like I
brings,
said, I think I'm just sometimes being too hard on themselves. But
yeah.
yeah,
I think when we bring them into alignment with their own motivation and give them that experience and that purpose, they start to come to it on their own. But we have to offer experiences and make not life not so easy that they don't want to, you know, be out of their comfort zone or do things they don't like doing. Because that's one of the things that I think is really helpful is when we make our kids do things they don't want to do. Just like we don't all want to do a lot of things, but we have to do them.
yeah, true, true, and yeah, I mean, it's the thing is they grow. Hopefully, when they're bigger, then hopefully, my plan would be, oh, maybe getting them involved more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, kids here, they're wild. Back home, growing up, I mean, if I did not do what my parents told me to do, they would beat the hell out of me, and it worked. I
Right.
always did, always do what they told me to do. Same with the teachers. When you go to school and you don't do your homework, next thing, the teachers would beat the hell out of you, and you come home, and then the parent would add on top of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it worked. And a lot of my friends and of my generation back when they come here, they're very successful. They work hard, they do business. I mean, and I think that idea of being disciplined at what you do worked for me. So yeah, but yeah, it's really tough. But I think we can continue working with the kids and other people to help them become resilient. And because sometimes this life throws hard stuff at you, and I think we all need to be able to overcome difficulties and move on with our lives. So,
Yeah. I think a lot of people, you've said move on a few times, and I think that's one of the things that hold people back is not moving on and being stuck in that pattern or that thought pattern of why me or this is happening to me, getting stuck in the victim mindset. But what I'm seeing as a pattern as I'm talking to people about resilience, they had to consciously to make a different choose a different mindset of um, why not me? Um, why can't I be successful? Why aren't there opportunities for me? And what these obstacles will keep getting in my way, but I'll keep showing up. I will keep showing up every other day until I get my driver's license. These are all obstacles, but what about the ones that were in your head? Because those were all physical or external obstacles. But what about some of the thoughts that were going through your head that you had to
um,
overcome?
yeah. So, and again, I've been in those situations where I just feel like I'm stuck. I mean, how can I move on? This is very difficult. And when I came here and I was very young, and there were times I'm like, why, like exactly like what you said, why me, and the next thing I do, then it's not working. And again, it's like, again, why me? It's just coming over and over again. And I think like my thought process is after going through so many problems, I've learned that if you keep focusing on negativity, like what's happening to me, why me, and then if you keep focusing on that, every next move you will make, it's not going to work for you because you're just too focused on that. That's where your mindset is to that negativity in a way. Like, it's just you're thinking. So I think it's not easy. And again, it was hard for me too, but I've been through so many experiences. I'm like, you know what? This is not going to work. If I'm going to focus on just this negative thoughts or holding myself or being stuck, then I'll always be stuck. So then it's about focusing on the positive side of things. Oh, this did not work, but hey, this is working here. Maybe it could be a very tiny progress, but I would celebrate that little progress. And I think it'll kind of reset my mind, like redirect my mind towards positivity, and then like keep following that path. And there were times I felt so guilty, like I was not able to be part of something, or there was a situation that I was like, I need to get this done, I need to be there, I need to do this. But then if I go that route, then I would probably be stuck or not being able to move on. So it was really hard. I felt guilty for quite some time. But then later I was happy that I chose a different path that made me happy. Now it boils down to the idea of you cannot keep everybody happy. It's life. Um, and again, like I said, I'm not perfect. I've got problems. I've got my own flaws. But then I don't have to leave that life being stuck somewhere, not being able to move. I mean, that would not be fair to me. And in life, I think you don't have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. So it's like, as long as you are doing what's good for you, what's good for others, what makes you happy, I think it's going to be hard, but I think to me, it's just about reflecting, focusing on positive things, and just moving forward. It doesn't have to be fast and rapid. It could be very slow, but then redirecting towards that positive thought would help. And over the course of time, I mean, I think you just do it in this situation, then you will learn to do it in another situation too. So it's kind of like directing towards the positive pathway to help you move on. But every situation is different, and again, it's just analyzing every situation. But then I think having this understanding of, you know, life is short, and at the end of the day, if you're in a situation where you have to pick a side, I mean, someone is not going to be happy. It's given. If you try to make happy, other person is not satisfied or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as long as you know in your heart you're doing this for good and this is what it is, then I think it'll kind of help you move on. But cultivating experience, from some of the difficult situation and just focusing on positivity. And at difficult times, I just sometimes, read books, um, um, and listen to, speakers. I mean, I like Tony Robbins, and I just listen to him and some other people. Read books about, emotional intelligence and things like that, and leadership, and just kind of, and also if I'm really stuck and if I feel like I need to move on and I cannot move on, I just take a break. So I just take 2 days off and go to Vegas, gamble or whatever, or
Yeah.
go camping,
Yeah.
or
Do
travel
you camp
somewhere.
now? Do you go back to camp? Do you ever want to go back to camp and camp? It seems like a
Yeah, I do.
you
I,
do.
I do camping. I love camping,
Okay.
and it reminds me of childhood,
Yeah.
my childhood growing up. So I love camping. I've gone to Yellowstone several times and
Yeah.
Mountain Home, um, just camp places here and there, and I think, and sometimes my kids help. I mean, if I'm really stuck, and I just go, be with them, and they keep me distracted. Kids always distracts you, so things of that nature. But with that being said, I mean, it's really sometimes it's just easy to talk and hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all should learn a little bit, from our experience and try to move on, because being stuck doesn't help anyone
Mm-mm.
at the end of the day. And I think focusing on that okay, I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do, but what is it gonna do next?
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be stuck here forever. The kind of focusing on that situation sometimes has helped me move out of there as well.
I think also you reaching out to help others helps you get unstuck. So
True.
when you don't know and you're stuck, reaching out, being vulnerable, finding places that you can help, asking for help, that's one of the things that people struggle with too. I think is just asking for help or thinking people wouldn't want to give you their time, but they really would.
True. True. And I mean, I can understand, sometimes it's really hard to be vulnerable and even be open to someone else. Like, hey, I'm going through this, what would you suggest? And I think, I mean, life here is hectic. Everyone is busy. They're doing too many things, including myself. Sometimes I just feel like I'm just doing too many things and don't have time for things I want to do, or like, have time for my family and things like that. But I think building connections and finding friends that you can trust, and just um, and again, I think when it comes to problem solving and things like that, if you're there, I guess if you're listening to this podcast, or if you feel like, what can I do to help others? Sometimes when somebody wants to talk to me, I would just sit and listen, and just listen to them, not being judgmental at all. And I mean, there are times um, that just listening helps, and not even talking. Sometimes we just need somebody that could just hear us out
Mm-hmm.
without just being judgmental, or just so sometimes I do that too. But again, having those network of people that you can talk to or bounce ideas with, I think, are very important in life when we're going through difficult times.
Man, it's been such a pleasure. I could talk to you for hours, but I think we are at our time, and you are truly an Idaho gem. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I I've just been inspired by you from the day I met you, and hearing your story, getting to share meals with you, getting to meet your wife and your kids, and just stopping in whenever we're in Twin, or whenever you're around. You always seem to let us know too. I just really cherish you and think that you're an amazing human, and I love what you're doing, and I hope that there's ways that we can support you in the future. And just thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Means a lot to me, and it's been an honor for me to be able to call you my friend and be with you guys, and thank you for this opportunity to let me share my story and be part of this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.